Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. Did you know?
There's going to be a Patrick Stewart thing at the beginning of us going live because an ad came up. That's hilarious. What's up, everybody? Minus here. This is our 5-minute pre-show. That was Patrick Stewart. He wanted to be on the show. We told him, Patrick, there's not enough time. We have to get to the community. We appreciate it, but you're not part of our community yet. Maybe if you earn your stripes. So this is our little pre-show here. We start our stream about 5 minutes early before we kick the show off. So if you haven't been here before, it gives you some time to say hello to people in chat, see how the community's doing. We'll give some shout outs as well. But more importantly, we actually show right on the screen. Man, having a tough time talking. We show right on the screen here. You'll see how to join. So what this show is, if you haven't seen it before, you're actually able to jump into our Discord. And then from there, you can jump into a voice channel called the Green Room. And you can hang out in the green room, and it shows that you want to come on the air to talk about the topic. And what we'll do is we're going to pull people in to the live show where you'll be able to talk to us about that topic. So it kind of shows it there, steps 1 through 4. It shows you how to jump in. You can talk in the YouTube channel chat if you want, the Discord chat. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we try to keep up with all of it. So that is what we're doing right now. If you're watching this on demand, just skip ahead 5 minutes, and that'll be right about the show time. We usually, again, do this for about 5 minutes just to get everybody knowing that we're going live and get everybody on. So let's go ahead and chat. See who's in chat here. We got Xmako has been here for a bit chatting with me. So what's up, Xmako? We have Theric. Evening, Theric. Love the second video. If you guys haven't seen, Theric is actually making some content. Follow him on YouTube and check out his content. He's doing a lot of lore and dig in. Pretty cool. We have Anakin. He says hi from Oz. Well, hello, Anakin. Cerilius. Good evening, all. Wiznat. Oh my God, I finally made a live stream. Well, welcome. If you want to come on live, just jump into that green room. It's scary the first time, and then it's addicting. Erikai, what's up? IdioTech. Welcome. I used to call him Idiot EQ. And he went with it. That just goes, I can never pronounce people's names right. He literally went with being called Idiot EQ for like 6 shows before he was like, my name's IdioTech. Kind of funny. See, Erikai, what's up? Lexer. Nice. Lex says the only scary thing about that green room is him when he's drinking. Chris Kane's here. And just in Chris Kane fashion, he says this channel sucks. Chris, I miss you. I miss you, my bald friend, my bald brother. Rising Shadow, what is up? Welcome to the chat. Vandraad. Vandraad is multitasking. Lexer said, Mr. Kane, is it my birthday? All right, guys, so we got about 1 minute. We're going to go live. What's going to happen is you're going to see our viewer warning, Pantheon Plus production logo, and that's going to shoot us right into the live show. And we'll start with some housekeeping and go from there. We already got a pretty good group in here, so I'm excited for that. We'll see, hopefully get some people in the green room. It's never too early to jump in that green room. I kind of try to go through the order of who's been in there. We have a couple people in the green room already. We have Erikai, we have Lexer in there. So if you want to get on the show, you can jump in early. You can mute your headphones and your mic, and we'll tell you when to unmute them so you can come in. We smoke Bitcoins. Every time he comes in, he says, buy Bitcoin. But he's always here. Either he's a really good marketer or he really loves Pantheon and Bitcoin. What's up, Big Shoes? All right, guys, so we are at 9 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and hit it live right now. So here we go. Pantheon PlusYou, episode 18. Here we go.
Oh, we're live? We're streaming right now? Cool. Awesome, man. Let me just,
Hey everybody, Minus here from Pantheon Plus, and welcome to episode 18 of Pantheon PlusYou. Tonight we're going to be going over a new topic that I think everyone's going to enjoy, but before we get there, let's do a tiny bit of housekeeping. So first, I do want to thank everybody who's been coming every week. You guys have been making this show more and more popular. You guys have been filling up the chat. We've had a ton of discussion. It's bleeding into Reddit. It's bleeding onto the Discord. It's bleeding into the Pantheon Plus Discord. It's just been a fun time talking through these different topics. So if there's a topic you really want us to talk about or you want to be discussed on the show, please shoot it to me at any time. If anybody doesn't know, if you are on our Discord, you can ping me, whisper me anytime, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to respond pretty quick. So feel free. I am wide open on my Twitter DMs. I'm wide open on Discord. You can message me and chat with me with anything you have questions on. So at the end of the day, we're here for Pantheon. We're here for community. We joined this community because of the hashtag Community Matters that Brad started, and that's what we continue to try to drive. If you haven't seen the show before, this show is all about the community talking. We're going to give our opinions, and then we're going to open it up to you to talk about the topic at hand. So let's go ahead and get started here. And first, I'm going to introduce our community co-host. So this is another cool part. We don't just bring content creators on to chat in Pantheon PlusYou as a co-host. We bring on community members. We're hoping to get a VR dev on here someday. Yes, I'm still trying. I don't have enough dirt. We will get it, though. So tonight, we have community member Vandraad. So Vandraad, welcome to Pantheon PlusYou. How are you?
Hello. Good evening.
So Vandraad, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the Pantheon community, your gaming background, give everybody a heads up on you.
God, man, my gaming background started in the Meridian 59 Ultima Online days and basically went through every MMO ever since. I have been following Pantheon, I want to say since mid to early 2013, before there was the Kickstarter, before this current set of forums. There was even a smaller community, a smaller grouping of people. There was a Discord server and whatnot. So yeah, I'm 6 years into this now? Yeah.
Nice. A lot longer than me. That's why you're allowed to not be as patient as me.
I can't be patient. I'm running out of time.
So Vandraad, what interested you in Pantheon? Like what got you on board in the first place and what's kept you here? 6 years, holy cow.
Yeah, as longer I put into my first marriage. So it came out, Brad started mentioning things, and I'd been following stuff that had been done. I was in Vanguard, in the alphas and the betas for Vanguard, and all the other games that I've been playing just didn't have that attraction. There was something or some things that were lacking that just did not make me want to keep playing. And when I heard that Brad was thinking about developing another game, and he was talking about the spiritual successor to EverQuest, I was like, hopefully, he can actually pull that off. So I started following it. And so far, I have not been disappointed.
Yeah, I have only been following. We were actually talking about this before we came live on the air. 2018, probably somewhere around September 2018. So not nearly as long as you, but I've enjoyed every moment. And I guess selfishly, when there's delays, I get to talk more and make more stuff and hang out with people. So I'm enjoying the ride as much as I want to enjoy that pinnacle. Like getting to the top of the mountain is going to be awesome, but I'm appreciating the journey, so to speak. And that's why I can sort of be a little more positive. And people are always like, wow, you're always so positive. But aren't you mad? I get upset, but what are you going to do? It's another day.
It's true.
As Nathan says, we're one day closer every day. So Vandraad, tonight, let's go ahead and open up this topic and we'll get started in Lexer. We'll get you in first tonight. Then we'll follow up with Erikai. If you guys want to get in on the show, jump into the green room on our Discord. You can get there at www.pantheon.plus, click the join Discord, jump into the green room, and that tells us you want to come on the air. And then we'll let you know when we're pulling you in. So tonight we're talking about mounts in MMORPGs, and it's a pretty wide topic, and we're going to leave that pretty open. We're not going to, just kind of make a straight path that we're going to talk about. The meter at the bottom is going to be basically at the bottom of the meter. If we keep it down there, it's no mounts or utility only. The middle of the meter is leaning towards ground mounts, and then at the top of the meter would be flying mounts if you would want those. And that's just for the meter. The topic doesn't really have to jump around those individual rankings, but we like to have a meter. We like to have something that we can kind of gauge the community on, gauge the coasts, and kind of see where we come out there. So I think that's pretty fun. So Vandraad, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the screen over. I'm going to do my little rant. Then I'm going to give you a chance to rant and set the viewer meter. Okay, sound good?
Go for it.
All right, so here we go. So talking about mounts, one of the things that Vandraad and I were actually talking about before the show went live is that it's one of those weird topics where mounts sort of came to be And now everybody just accepts it for what it is, and just it's a copy paste in every game. You have some kind of mounts that you can get. You get all these crazy ones. You get them through achievements. You get them on cash shops. Sometimes they fit the lore. Sometimes they're not, and they're just fancy, fun mounts that you can buy or earn for a limited time. And then a lot of games started introducing flying. So then all of a sudden every MMO just had flying mounts. And it's really strange because I feel like it's a category that we could add a lot of depth to, but unfortunately we're not. It's just cookie cutter across all the games. We're not seeing mounted combat. We're not seeing a lot of really cool things. So let's go ahead and start with the meter for my rant here. And then I'll just go into a couple things I'd like to see. And then I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So when you look at the meter, I do not want flying mounts. Let me go ahead and start that right now. No flying mounts. The reason I loved flying in WoW, don't get me wrong. It was there. I was going to use it. It made time quicker. But it made me not really appreciate the world. It made me skip the world, and I never feel immersed because I'm just flying above it the whole time. And for WoW, it worked a little bit better because WoW's not a super dangerous game. You could run across everything and just run through things, and they would eventually stop chasing you. But in a game where the world is supposed to be dangerous, the last thing I want to do is be able to skip half the content by flying over top of it. I think that it creates a lot of development things that you have to do to dumb down the world above. I think that when you don't have flying, you can make more complicated engagements on the ground. So I am just completely against flying mounts altogether. Now, there's part of our community that's against mounts at all. I definitely think we need to have ground mounts. One of the things that's brought up among our community quite a bit is immersion. And if this is going to be a living, breathing world that we're immersed in, and there's going to be creatures everywhere and all these races that come from different planets with these different animals on them, and there's all these wild beasts, it would be really ridiculous to me if nobody ever thought of taming something so that they could ride it. It just doesn't feel like that would be a real thing at all. So I would think that ground mounts should occur. I think that you need to have ground mounts that are varying speeds. And I think that you probably have to have some rules and limitations on it for when you're engaged in combat or you're being chased when you're on a mount. Maybe have mounts be afraid or feared, and you get kicked off the mount, fall to the ground, take some damage actually if you're get into a bad combat situation. To innovate that a little bit more. I don't mind just clicking on the mount and bringing it to you. It would be cool if you kind of whistled for it and you see it come from the distance or off screen to you or something like that, just to make it feel a little bit better. But here's the piece that I really want to drive home. I want utility mounts. So I want ground mounts. I don't mind faster speeds. Let's not get super crazy, but I don't mind ground mounts at all that help us traverse the world, so to speak. But I'm also okay with mounts that maybe are just regular run speed, but they have use. Like, for example, a mount where it has bags on it and you can throw gear and equipment on it, even if it's just crafting. Or maybe you have special mounts that can hold weapons, and you have special mounts that can hold crafting items, and you have special mounts that could hold armor. But to have these different mounts that you can actually store your gear on instead of carrying it in your bags on you all the time, which will help you with weight allowance, will help you with space for looting. And maybe that mount, those types of utility mounts, they're not faster. So now you have a choice. Do I want to travel fast, or do I want utility in my mount? And I think there's a lot that we can come up with as a community that can be pretty creative in mounts when you talk about utility and what's on them and what they can enable, that I think would be really cool that a lot of companies just haven't approached for some reason. I don't understand why. So that's where I stand. I'm going to go ahead and move my meter here. I'm going to say that right in the middle, I want the ground mounts, but I don't want to be anywhere near flying. So we're going to go to right in the middle with ground mounts, and that's where I'm going to be. So that's my starting rant. Vandraad, I'm going to toss it to you, and you have all the time you need here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So yes, I'm going to agree with you on no flying mounts. And the reason for that is these games exist on a two-dimensional plane. Okay. Even though it looks three-dimensional, it's a two-dimensional plane. Things exist on the surface of the world. There is never content flying up above our heads. So flying mounts only ever allow you to skip content, to bypass content. I am a huge proponent of always having to be within the content, either dealing with it, running slightly around it, but actually having to take an active role in getting from A to B. When it comes to ground mounts, though, the problem that I have with them, if I go back to EQ1, is you had different speeds of ground mounts, and some of them were ridiculously fast. And it basically became that the fastest mount was really the only good one. The rest of them were kind of terrible. The fast ground mounts also allow you to run with impunity through content. So long as you have the money to buy one, you're at literally no risk anywhere. And here is why. We know that mobs at a certain location have an aggro radius. And if you can enter that radius and get to a point beyond which its timing says, okay, I've recognized that somebody's in my aggro radius. I've now recognized that I need to attack him. I'm going to attack. If you are beyond the point that they can catch up and attack you, you're perfectly 100% safe all the time. I disagree with that. That should never be a thing. You should never be 100% safe all of the time. Super fast ground mounts allow that. Utility mounts, though, yes, I'm in a huge favor for utility mount, and I'm glad that you brought up the idea of the having bag space, because there was a conversation back in 2013 with Brad and a few of the developers and a bunch of us on the Discord server, and they brought up the idea of having a pack mule. And one thing that people talked about for mounts was, why do you want one? Well, I need to get from A to B faster. Okay, where is typically point A always going to be? In a town. People always go back to town at the end of, their evening of adventuring. What if you didn't have to go back to town all the time? So the idea of having a pack mount, which was mobile secured storage, only you could access it, NPCs wouldn't attack it, it didn't let you move any faster, but you could carry, a couple days worth of provisions, some situational gear, different weapons, crafting items, whatever. You parked it outside of a dungeon, or the idea was that there would be these little outposts scattered throughout the world. You'd park your horse at a little outpost and then walk the zone or two over to your dungeon. That way, once a week or so, you take all of your spoils back to the main town, and you do your thing. So yes, definitely utility mounts, but I'm going to have to say I am going to be against ground mounts if they run faster than players. But if they don't run faster than players, then other than just the visual aspect of it, what's the point? I would just rather not necessarily see it. So I want to move the slider to no mounts / utility only.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and move that. So a lot of good ideas there. I actually really like that. I really like the little posts. Just make them kind of openly available. Even maybe...
Yeah, and it also involved a money sink, because you would pay money to an NPC to put your horse in a stable, because the horse would have to be fed, and watered and all this other stuff like that. So there was a continual cost that went along with it. And you could buy, the idea was that you could buy different types of mounts for, more storage space, and that sort of thing. But it was basically a pack mule.
That's pretty awesome. We're kind of aligned. I think that I'm okay with run speed, but there has to be, I don't want to skip through content easily. Like if I'm on a path, I'm okay with running faster, but if I'm running through mobs, I don't want to. So we sort of align there, but there's a little gap. So that's interesting.
A little bit of a gap.
So, hey, our green room's bumping tonight. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in there right now. So let's go ahead and get this started if you don't mind. You want to bring in our first guest?
Sure, go ahead.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so
do it.
We're going to bring in Lexer. So Lexer, you're going to be first to come in. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this. I know you guys have talked about this on VOT, and you're doing a lot of work with Defend the Night. I'm sure this is a topic you guys have discussed. So really excited to hear your thoughts. Lexer, I'm bringing you in now. What's up, Lexer? How are you?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, sir. So I'm curious, I know you've probably talked about this topic to death over the years of VOT. So what are your thoughts and where are they now?
My thoughts really haven't changed much. I think mounts are great. It's a way to see a little more individual style with players. Some people like wolves, some people like horses, some people like giant lizards. Where I draw the line has to be flying mounts, for a lot of the reasons that have already been stated. Primarily, it takes so much out of the game from almost every aspect, and it's really just to help people bypass. And let's face it, from a developer's point of view, it's a very bad move. You're helping people bypass road bumps, which would potentially make their, almost
thoughtful
stretch
journey.
the content.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that too, but it stretches the content just a little bit.
Yeah, I know
So if you
people are
think about
sort of afraid of the comment of like gating, and it's not the gating that people are afraid of, right? To have to travel. That's gating is usually a time lock or locked behind
Right.
tokens. Like having to run somewhere, like we're gated in life. Like if I have to go to Publix to get something, I gotta get in my car. I gotta go to Publix. I can't just skip everything and be at Publix, right? Well, I guess I could order online now, so maybe I can.
But there's still
Ordering
a time
online is the
commitment.
equivalent of a flying mount.
There's still a time commitment involved, and there's also a cost.
Yeah,
Right. That's the thing. Like if we take WoW for example, the flying mounts, yeah, they were pricey at first,
Mhm.
but when you kind of progress through the expansions, you realize that they're really not expensive. So where's the downside? You know, where's that barrier that makes it worth what you're getting?
Since you brought WoW up, let's talk about that. Now, did all of you guys play WoW at some point?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay, so when we were playing WoW, flying mounts weren't a thing at first. It became a thing.
Yeah.
So we played
Burning Crusade, I believe.
That's what I'm trying to remember. I think it was towards the end of Burning Crusade you could fly. So we played vanilla in most of Burning Crusade not being able to fly. And so when flying mounts were announced, it was like the coolest thing in the world. Oh my God. So it was exciting because you really never saw it before in an MMO that I can think, at least effectively. And it just created this like, wow, look at the size of this world. So it was weird because when it first came out, it was awesome. And like you said, it was difficult to achieve. It was hard to get flying mounts. They weren't super, super fast. You were just able to fly. What happened? Why are people like me and you, who I think probably at that time were pretty excited to do it, why are we now kind of looking back and saying, eh?
It's the novelty of it. You know, you get a new perspective on a game. With WoW and Burning Crusade, you know, the world was, for lack of a better word, shattered. So a flying mount really did help you. It helps sell that shattered part because you get these little floating islands in the world, right? That you couldn't access unless you have flying mount.
Yeah.
In that instance, a flying mount actually opens up content. But then you start looking at all the other zones that don't have that. What does it actually bring you? Nothing. You know, and once the novelty wears off, you're just kind of like, it's really just made the game super easy mode.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like even though I'm against flying, I have to be like really hard on the stance that it cannot be a launch thing. It can't be a first expand. If flying's going to happen someday, it needs to be way down the road, and only because we've traversed the world so much that we're able to now see it from a different perspective, like WoW did, sort of. But the problem is then all the future content, you sort of have to do like WoW did and gate people from being able to fly. So it's just, it's messy. And then you have to design for flying. That's a whole different design perspective.
It is. It really is.
Well, and then it's
another
also
thing-
backward. Then you have to worry about the fact that you still have new players coming into the game, and they're going to be dealing with the quote old world, but yet having access to all of this much later content, you know, much later availability for mounts and that sort of thing, which makes all of the old world stuff even more easy.
Mm-hmm. One thing that a lot of designers or developers, however you want to look at it, that they seem to forget is you have to balance what the player gets versus what it costs. Now, let's say, for instance, flying mounts were a thing at launch in Pantheon, but they were horrendously expensive to use because maybe the fact that they're a flying mount, they had to eat a lot. Maybe that food's somewhat expensive. You know, I'm not saying that's a perfect solution, but it would kind of bring more to it to where it would feel a little more acceptable. Because maybe, yeah, I can fly because let's say it's a Pegasus. You can run around like a regular horse, but then it can fly. But maybe you have a limited resource for flying. And then you have to feed the Pegasus, which costs you money. And all of a sudden you're starting to get more of a balance where you're looking at something. Yeah, I can fly over this, but do I really want to? Because it's going to cost me.
Yeah.
You know, that...
A guildmate of mine had brought up the idea of where the mount could fly or go at a traverse at a slightly faster speed, but only for a certain period of time, and then it had a very, very long cooldown.
Mhm.
So you'd have to constantly be thinking, do I want to use this ability right here, right now? Because I might need it 5 minutes from now, and I won't have it available.
And I have seen that in games.
Yeah, I have too. I was actually going to bring that up. That's interesting.
Um,
So what would you do with the
the
meter,
balance
Lex?
that I
Where do you
had
want to
that I
put it before we
still
continue
remember.
on, just so I remember to ask you? What do you want to do? Do you want to keep it at no mounts utility only? Do you want to move it to ground mounts? It sounds like you're not into the flying, right?
Not unless someone really decides to sit down and give it some serious thought and not just wedge them on in there like everyone. So for now, I think I'm going to go dead center of the road, ground.
Okay. We'll go in between center and where Vandraad put it to even that out between two of you, and then we'll see what the rest of the community says. So awesome, Lexer. Anything else before I let you go?
Nope, that's it, sir. I got stuff that needs to be doing, but I'll stay here as long as I can.
Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you guys have a good night.
Take it easy.
Say ya.
Some interesting points brought up.
Yeah, indeed.
I'll wait to bring up some of the things that he said with some of our other guests on the show, because there are some things I do want to bring up. And he hit on a few points, and there's some games, and there's going to be a game I bring up here that people are going to cringe when I bring it up, but it did something good, and we have to admit it, even if the game is bad.
Okay.
So reading through some of the people were saying here, just to kind of catch up, Chris Kane said if there are flying mounts, they should be limited to a class like Druid. It would make me chat up Druids trying to become friends with him so he can carry me on his bird back. That'd be okay. I talk about identity. You couldn't teleport and fly though.
Yeah, there would have to be a trade-off.
Yeah. Orsic said, minus make it different, have mounts not be a movement speed buff, and make it carry external bag space. So he liked that idea. I think we're all sort of on board. Like, why don't more games do that? Albion Online did it to where you could ride on heavier mounts and you could carry more and have more run speed. And some of them, I think you can store stuff on. So there are games that have done it, but not in a grand MMO sense. Albion was very different. It didn't feel like a typical MMO. Big Shoes said EQ slow mounts gave you meditation if not moving. As a side note, no sit aggro.
All of them did.
Yeah, so no sit aggro. That's kind of cool. Vandrad Orsek is just agreeing with you on all your points. He loves you. You have a fan. Zach Tabor says he's fine with ground mounts, but I think players and NPCs need abilities, spells that cause dismount. That's interesting that he brought up players when you talk about a PvP sense. It's pretty smart. Rising Shadow says to us, skipping content is simply taking away from the game and learning your character and the geography of the game. 100%. If the danger of the world is the world, don't let us skip it. I mean, it's no benefit to anybody. It's not a benefit to us, and it's certainly not a benefit to the developer.
So EQ2 had the birds that flew between, set points.
Mhm.
And you had to go to the little tower, the first time in order to use it, but that was not a difficult process in and of itself. So once you made it that one time, you forever had access to skipping all of the content in between.
Are you okay with that? Like Flight Masters?
No,
you didn't
Nope.
want that? Okay, cool. That's a good point. So let's go ahead. We're going to bring in Erikai. Erikai was the second one waiting in there with Lexer. So Erikai, if you want to unmute your mic and headset, we're going to bring him in now. What's going on, Erikai? How are you?
Hey, what's up?
Not
howdy.
much, man. What's your thoughts on the topic tonight?
Oh, that's a good laugh.
As I think about it, because this has been a debate for a really long time in the community, I'm not on board. I'm really not on board with mounts, like at all. Period. I want to put that meter down as low as it can go because, I like what Vandraad said about skipping content. If your mount is so fast that you can just run past everything, then what's the point?
Yeah.
But I would also kind of argue that you can kind of do that with Spirit of Wolf in EverQuest. Like, you could just run past stuff anyway. So,
You don't want to get rid of Spirit of the Wolf, though, right?
Right. Like, it's so yeah, that feels a little bit like not a great argument for me, but I think it's valid that being able to just run past stuff that would otherwise kill you is not good.
Yeah, half my time in EQ was Sal with Levitate. Or so, or
right?
Levitate.
There's
Especially
another
in like
issue.
Dreadlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're running across Dreadlands without levitate, you're doing it wrong. And then I'm just really not on board with even utility mounts. Because here's what I've always end up observing, especially in games that have mounts and also have what am I thinking of? Gathering nodes. This is what you see every time. Somebody rubs their hands together for a few seconds, a horse appears, they run 40 feet away, and then they hop off their horse and go mine the vein, right? And then as soon as they're done depleting that iron ore vein, they rub their hands together for a few more cents, horse appears, and they're off to the next vein, and then they hop off again. And it feels so stupid to me to mount up, run a short distance, dismount, do whatever you need to do, mount up again, run a short distance, dismount. It just, at that point, I just question, what's the point of the mount? Why even have it?
Yeah. What about if the mount stayed there and you had to like actually climb back up on it? Because that's how Albion works. The mount will sit down. You jump off the mount. You have to actually dismount to start fighting. You can't fight on the mount, obviously. So you jump off the mount, you start fighting. The mount will stay there, and it has like a big radius that it'll stay there without running away scared. Like, would you, if you were gonna have it, would you rather it stay?
Leave it attackable.
Oh, geez. And maybe not kill it, but make it so you can't use it until you heal it or revive it or something.
Well, and I actually played Albion Online because of you, Minus. But
sorry, I mean, it's a fun game. It's not.
It was okay, but even in that, once you ran outside of the radius, your mount would despawn, and then you could just summon it again. So it didn't really do anything. The only thing, if I recall, is when you were within that radius, you had your weight reduction from all the the weight reduction that your mount gave you. But other than that,
we just had Orsic Battlefate just said, why don't you just make it stay there, able to be attacked, and if it gets hit enough, it goes on to some kind of long cooldown.
That's interesting.
Nice I suppose. So again, but how does it draw aggro? Like, why would it be attacked?
Well, again,
if you're a bandit, wouldn't you try to take out someone's horse so they couldn't get away?
Yeah, so it just becomes another entity. Like EverQuest 1 had Eye of Zom, a wizard spell. At one point, the eye didn't have aggro, but they changed it so that mobs would aggro on it. So it would be something simpler like that: is you buy a horse, and if you leave it somewhere, it's got a wider radius than, let's say, a player, that if something hostile walks by, it's going to get attacked. So yeah, there should be, for every benefit, there should be some sort of downside. And having it attackable and then not usable for some period of time after it's been attacked is a perfect balancing mechanic.
Yeah, you go with your friends, your mount gets killed. And you're like, crap, guys. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have a mount. So everyone's like, okay, well, we're hoofing it. Now the whole group has to hoof it together because, a mount got taken out. So there is, I guess, I mean, this is all just hypothetical, but that could be kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, that could alleviate some of the, I don't know. And I agree, Vandraad. I think there has to be some risk and some, drawbacks to having it to make it.
But if you have worthwhile. If you have a mount that you can summon and unsummon, but also then has carrying capacity, that to me is also a problem. If you're going to have a mount that
how about when it goes on cooldown? How about when it goes on? So if we ride that cooldown thing where it can be attacked, how about when it's on cooldown, you can't bring it out, so you can't get to the gear you put on it?
I'd just rather leave it in the world. It's stuck there. It just won't move. Nothing will attack it, but it's just stuck there.
You just set up
so you're gonna have to hang out for 45 minutes or whatever it is for your horse to finally decide that, okay, yeah, you left me here, a-hole, but now I can finally walk on.
This sounds like how PETA would make a mount.
There we go.
And at that point, I would start to wonder, why do I even have a mount? Like if I have to babysit it and take it everywhere, fuck that. I'm not doing that.
Theric just said, haha.
Like,
Theric just said, camping my own horse.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a point where it's just not worth it to me. I don't buy into the fact that mounts improve the game in any way. And so I'm just on board with leave them out. Classic EQ doesn't have them. You can play on P99 or wherever. There's no mounts. There's nothing. People get along just fine.
So I'm gonna make one rebuttal, and then I'm gonna let you move the meter. You're a knight. I don't know what class you're gonna play. You're a warrior or you're a paladin.
Don't give a shit.
And you're a knight. You don't want to be a knight on his steed. Like, that's so medieval RPG.
I'll give you that. That's a personal desire. I don't have that desire, but I can see why people would want it. But it doesn't matter to me. And my last knock or ding against it is I just don't want to see people sitting around in town just on their horses.
1,000 mounts standing on top of NPCs.
Yeah, it just doesn't do. I just think they don't do anything realistically for the game. I don't even want to see them. I don't want to see them at all.
Okay, so you want to move that meter down. We're gonna put it back to where Vandraad had it. So
yeah,
you've canceled. You have effectively. You have effectively canceled Lexer.
You're welcome, Lex.
So, Erica, I'm going to drop you down. Good topic, good discussion. Next, we're going to be bringing in IdioTech next. So, IdioTech, get ready. Erica, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
See ya.
So, some good points there. I mean, definitely. Well against it. I understand. And there's people that would make a whole game out of managing your mount. So, there's people that would love that. It's almost like the Tamagotchi of MMOs.
Yeah. So a guildmate of mine brought up the idea about, he's really into mounts and he wanted to make a whole economy and player interaction about it. So yes, you could buy a horse from an NPC, but if you want to you can put armor on it, and that sort of thing. So you need to have a player an armor smith, a blacksmith to make those things. You need specialized food. So you have to go to a cook in order to feed a thing. You can have an entire, economy built around that sort of
built
thing.
Into it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the thing too, right? So in most games, crafting is so tied to progression, and then you out progress it through the content. So crafting always feels worthless because of it. If crafting's a lifeblood of systems, where there's always going to be value in certain items, that's interesting. And if those systems can contribute to that, it kind of works both ways. So that's actually
he went so far as to say, you should be able to breed horses, and people could breed faster ones, stronger ones, more carrying capacity.
Yeah.
Use them for attacks and that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's going a little bit far, but I could see the point.
Yeah. IdioTech was in the green room, but he jumped to AFK. So IdioTech, if you want to come on the show, jump back into the green room. We're going to bring you in here shortly. If not, we can bring you back in when you get back if you're AFK. Oh, he's back. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to say, let me read through a couple comments and we'll bring him in. Almighty Sarlacc says, what's up? What's up, sir? How are you? Rising Shadow says, hey. Let's see here. I'm going to mispronounce this. Joan Lee. I think that's probably right. He said mounts equal another form of progression and status. That's very important in a game where you're talking about identity and having identity across the server in the world. I'll go back to people who actually got invincible or is invincible, right, from the Lich King. There were people that were trying to get that for 14 years. Well, not 14, since Lich King came out, and still haven't gotten it. If you had that and you were sitting in town on that, you were like, look at this guy's mount. So that's interesting. I actually sort of agree with him on that. Theric says Rangers should get horses and no one else, Vandraad.
Yeah, and I responded by, why should Rangers have mounts when they spend all their time naked at their bind point?
Well, I was going to say it's really hard to ride a mount when you're dead.
True.
I mean, unless that mount, you know what, maybe we do need that, because if you have Ranger friends, maybe the mount can carry them to content, just their corpse, so that they can actually participate. Right? Does that work?
Their mount takes their corpse back and forth from their bind point to wherever they're fighting.
Yeah,
you just see a horse with a dead body sloped over the back of it. It's like, oh, there goes a ranger.
Exactly. Trotter Nation said mounts are something to work towards. Again, towards that sort of what Joanne Lee was talking about with like the form of progression. I think that is pretty important, actually. And Tim Dennis actually said Ranger down, so that's fantastic. That was a little bit ago. Rising Shadow said, as a ranger, I would use my horse as a weapon shield. That's so good.
And then when you're done with it, you give it to your local chef to turn it into some horse steaks or something.
Eric I said, ha ha ha, I'm such a grouch. No, you just have an opinion that's different. Our culture, I don't want to get into some huge thing here, but our culture has really gotten away from being able to accept different opinions, and that's what we do here. So I'm happy you came on. I don't want everyone to come on here with the same opinion. I don't want everyone to come on with the same ideas. We're a community. We need to come together around ideas and sort of enlighten each other. That's the whole point of this. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in I called him IdioTech again, IdioTech. Go ahead and unmute your mic and we'll bring you in. So, I called him Idiot EQ for so long. He never corrected me. I felt bad. Here he comes.
So nice of him.
Yeah, right. What's up, IdioTech? How are you?
Idiot EQ here.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Your name, if it wasn't Pantheon that we were playing, which is so EQ influenced, there's so many EQ fans, I would have never thought about it. Ever.
I know. That's why I was like, man, I don't want to disappoint anybody.
So
I'll just go with it.
Yeah. What's your opinion on mounts? Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, man. I think everyone's had really good points. I feel like this is one of those things that like I've been saying for years with all the games that I've played.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this, and you guys were talking about Burning Crusade and flying mounts and WoW back in the day. I'll say that to me at least, I think that area, all of Outlands, was kind of made for flying mounts.
Especially
like,
what was it? Shadowlands, and what was the other one? With Area 51, the Netherlands, or
it's been a while. It's been 10 years for me.
But yeah, they were all broken up. Like you couldn't even get to certain places. Like Tempest Keep, you had to fly to, right?
And then even something like Zanger Marsh, like I remember that area with all the big mushrooms and stuff, and being able to like fly to the tops of them. Like it really was built for it. So I hate to say that like flying mounts in and of itself kill content, because they kill content that wasn't made for the flying to be there.
Yeah,
that's what I think happens. You can make an area where, you know, one, we're not talking about dungeons and things like that where you're just not going to be able to fly.
So that's an interesting concept. Let me jump in there. So we've seen Amber Fate, which is considered a dungeon, but it's open world. The whole game's open world. So are we to assume that like there'll be like magic zone lines that all of a sudden you can't mount? Because if you could use a flying mount in Amber Fate, that whole zone is not nearly as cool as it was.
Yeah, not at all.
It wrecks that entire zone, right?
It would completely wreck it. I could see them doing something like, you know, let's say off the bat, like nobody who would be of level to do Amber Fate would have this certain mount simply because it's cold there and mounts couldn't fly, or something along those lines.
What if it was like Lexer said? What if there was like anti-air weaponry in the Amber Fate? That, like,
well,
when
they
you were
did say
flying,
when they
you'd
were
get
talking
attacked.
about the climbing and the footage that you're showing, they said they wanted to include something so that people can't exploit and just climb. They would, you know, they'll do a ranged move to hit you and drop you while you're climbing. So what would be the difference with flying?
Yeah, it's true.
And that's to not say. So let me take a step back and say I'm okay without flying. I don't need flying in a game. I just don't want them to limit it simply because of that. I picture things like, you know, maybe the Gnome City has some flying in it, specifically just there. Like I don't want them to limit something that could be a cool exploration tool simply because we don't want it to ruin content, but it can be part of the content.
Well, that could be the, you know, in the case like the Gnome City, or, you know, I look back to EQ ones like Plane in Sky, where you've got, you know, the different islands and everything. And there's clearly, you need some way to get from A to B and not use a teleport. That way you could put in your autopilot, like flying carpet the EQ2 had and that sort of thing, to get you from A to B. Or, you know, I want to fly from this island to that one. You pick this particular NPC.
You could also just have like
money,
teleporters like that.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like, you know, it's just a visual difference to get from A to B in that point.
Yeah, and that brings up a point of, do we? I used to, in like an FF11 and I'm sure in EQ as well, I used to like the travel that actually took time. Like you'd have to wait for a boat for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you know when it would come, and then it would take like an actual 20 minutes to get somewhere. Like travel like that is something that I think,
man, running through Butcher Block and Steamfront, like everyone dreads the old Karana runs.
Or, you know, or it was the running through Butcher Block, somebody yells boat and they say, oh, it's in sight, and you're like, shit, I'm halfway across the zone, I'll never make it. You round the corner and you see it just pull away and you're like, oh hell, I got 15 minutes now.
See, again,
you just put like heart crushing like memories into my soul.
Final Fantasy had it to the point where it would kind of lag a little bit, so there would be a ship there, and if you went to run onto like the bridge, it would just be a wall, and you're like, wait, no, it's there, and you can't get over the bridge, and you realize that the cutscene started for them. And
how about when you fell off the boat in the Ocean of Tears?
Oh, it's terrible.
Hey, that's how I got swimming to 100.
That's fantastic. So let's go ahead. We're gonna go into next will be Hoye, then Elbrus, then Mythos will be next. in the order here. But before we let you go, so I'm going to bring up a topic, and the future guests can talk about it. Chat, you can talk about it. So we talked a little bit about mounts and the speeds and just being able to get a fast speed mount. Now all of a sudden that's the only mount you use. Bringing up a game. Chat, go ahead and make fun of me because I'm about to mention a meme MMO. But Bless Online. So Bless Online's mounts, Vandraad had a little bit of what you said. They had a certain amount of stam, and you had to save it up to use speed. And when you didn't, you just were sort of normal, right? So aside from that, your every mount as you used them would slowly level. And as they leveled, they would gain maybe a little more stam, but every mount you got started at 0, and you could literally tame different mounts across the world, just as like wolves out in the wild and horses and these things you see, you could tame them, and then you'd have to build them up if you wanted to ride them. And some of them may have like a special ability. I would like to see more depth where the speed isn't just, oh, I have a fast mount now, but if we're going to have a faster mount, like I've invested time into it in order to make it this way. And I can't buy it on a marketplace. I can't just bypass that. It's a part of the game where this is a mount that I identify with. This is something that brings character to me. I've spent time with it. And now I'm a little bit faster, not crazy, but because I've invested some time in it, and maybe I have like a cool little skill I can use while I'm on it. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I enjoy it. Coming from, and you saw me on Arcade a bit. Arcade is very much like that. Arcade goes as far as to have 3 gear pieces that you could put on your mount that can actually do get better, and they'll have like boots that help the speed of the mount and things like that. And the mount itself actually needs EXP. You needed to have it out and to kill monsters while it was out for it to gain EXP. I think anything where you can include more utility, and not only more utility, where you can include more of a, I don't want to say more gear. We're all here to play a loot game.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like a disservice where we're just like, oh, it's a mount. Why can't that be another thing that you want loot for, your mount?
Yeah, carry your secondary, third armor sets, your different specs or builds.
I'm thinking like Arthas came out on this awesome mount as well. What if you could get not only could get the mount maybe, but get like an armor piece that's off of his mount? And I'm just bringing up Arthas because I feel like we all know it.
And that's cool. So barding for your mounts would be sick. I'm all about
this goes back to the whole the player interaction and having blacksmith and armor smiths and whatnot being able to make armor and faster shoes and whatnot for your horses. It can be a whole economy thing.
And they can wear down. They can wear down, right? So you have to go back and get new ones from a blacksmith. Yeah,
definitely.
I think the more that it's not just I click on this thing and I am faster.
Yeah, I do like what it does for the world when it comes to there's different races, so the idea that each race has its own mount doesn't need to be that cookie cutter. I'm not looking for them to sit here and create 12 different mount types, but I think if like standard mount all around the world of Pantheon becomes like a horse, and I think if there's rare mounts throughout the world, I just think that would be so dope. Every time you see someone on like a tiger, it's not just, oh, that's the tiger because they're a
night elf.
Yeah, the night elf mount. I want there to be like, oh, you got that drop off this one thing, or you killed that one tiger or tamed it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think mounts could just be another form of loot that'll make people unique throughout the world. So that's what I would want.
What if you had a ranger or druid who, if you had to have them with you to like pacify it, and you could walk up to it and like touch it to like bond with it? Like that's even crazier.
So the mount would exist in the world first as a wild NPC, and you'd need to tame it.
Yeah.
Then you could pretty much pick any single NPC that was out there, and of course it would de-level. It would automatically de-level, so that it's like, oh, I just tamed a level 65 bear, but it would reduce it to the status of a normal whatever the horse would be equivalent. My whole thing is, if you're going to do all this, the mount has to remain as a permanent item in the world.
So
it can't be something that you can summon and unsummon at will.
Yeah,
I agree.
So IdioTech, where do you want to do with that meter? So right now it's been moved down where it's no mounts actually with the community. You want to move that up, I take it?
I would move it up. I would be in line where you are. I'd like ground mounts. I want them to be effective. I don't want them to just become arbitrary and everyone has a mount. I think, yeah, everyone can have like a base mount. Everyone can get a horse at some point. Make it a good amount of money. Make it something that you need to actually work for. Kind of like Vanilla WoW. People were playing Vanilla WoW again and realizing like, damn, you need, I can't remember what it was, but it's a decent amount of gold for the first one. And not a lot of people had it right when they hit that level.
Yeah.
But keep it at that. I'm not saying I'm against flying mounts, but I'll say what I said back then is that I feel like it should be specific to content. Flying is something that's fun. I remember jumping off of things and floating down as a mage in WoW, and that was just fun.
Yeah.
So I don't.
It
want
makes
to
those utility style spells more fun. You would never use them if
exactly.
You have a
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you. Awesome points there. We moved the meter up a little bit. Appreciate it, man. Jump by anytime.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. I'll catch you soon.
We'll be going to Hoye next. So we've talked a little bit. I wanted to bring up a comment here. We had some. I love that you said I need to Google that, and somebody said it's horrible. Don't Google it. I've said it on other streams, so I'm not afraid to say it right now. I actually really enjoyed Bless. You just couldn't read the Reddit because everyone on the Reddit was salty, like backers who the game was changed, and they were pissed. So like the Reddit was literally nothing but anyone who wanted to find info was bombarded with this game is trash, blah, 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 blah. Like it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a community try so desperately to end a game as they did Bless. I wasn't involved in any of that pre-stuff, so to me, none of that mattered. So when I played it, it was just for what it was. I literally actively enjoyed it. I thought it would have made a great console MMO, if that makes sense. Like,
oh yeah, there's
limited action
difference.
set. Yeah, it felt like a really good console MMO. But somebody here said this is super important. So we're talking about land mounts. We're talking about flying mounts. Rising Shadows said jellyfish mounts, underwater mounts.
Well, yeah, because I think somebody said the Darkmere should have a dolphin mount, and I said jellyfish mount.
Yeah,
because that would just be hysterically funny.
So let's think about that for a second.
Sea
Is there
cucumber mount.
anything worse in the entire world? Anything?
Than a Darkmere?
Well, no. Is there anything worse in the world than an underwater zone in any game that you've ever played? I'm talking back from Super Mario through Kedge Keep, through anything. Nobody likes water levels. No one said, you know what, I really enjoyed that
because
water level.
they never get the physics and the mechanics in underwater world or underwater zones done correctly. The games are designed to exist on a two-dimensional plane, and when NPCs aren't stuck on that plane, everything just goes wonky. You know, if you start looking at like when you're casting, you have to stand still. Well, does vertical count? Because you have to keep swimming to maintain a certain height, but that's going to interrupt your casting because if you don't swim, you're going to drop, and that means it's going to Oh, it was such a nightmare, and I've never enjoyed
a water zone in any game I've ever played. Like, remember Ocarina of Time? Ocarina of Time, you had the water temple. Horrible. It would take a lot for me to actually think of a water level in any singular game that I was like, that's actually pretty good. I don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either.
Let's go ahead and bring Hoye in. Hoye, we are going to bring you in next. You're already unmuted. Your headset is good, so we're bringing you in right now. Wave race. Well, okay, Mushy. Racing games on water are okay. So I guess that proves it. Hoye, welcome. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. It's going good. So I don't know how much of the conversation you've heard so far, but feel free to jump into any of it. Jump down any rabbit hole you'd like. What are your thoughts?
Mine is pretty simple. The only two caveats I have are, one, keep the people in the world. Don't make mounts. Essentially I'm saying don't make flying mounts. I want people on the ground just as they were, keep them in the world on the ground. And then the second thing is, don't make stupid ass mounts.
Well, you just jumped into a topic I wanted to talk about. I agree.
That's pretty much it. So the most important one is don't take people out of the world. As far as speed and whatnot, I don't think they should be cranked up too much, but I would be okay with them being a little bit faster than the highest class run speed buff. Nothing too drastic though, but keep them in the world where, for example, okay, so EverQuest, EQ2. They used to have to take a boat to each different zone. So you'd have to take a boat to Neck, then you had to take a boat to Everfrost, whatever. And that was a big hub. It'd make the world feel really big. because people would have to run all the way out there, wait for the boat. You saw a whole bunch of people in the world. Eventually, they
That's a
changed it
great
where
point. Flying takes away from gathering spots quite a bit.
Right. It eventually got to the point where you could just click the bell at any zone you wanted, and you could go wherever you wanted to. When they did that, the world became instantly very, very small, very, very unpopulated, because people could instantly get to whatever zone, whatever instance they wanted to get to, and the world just felt super small after that. So I like the aspect of having to run. I don't care if you're on a mount or on foot. If people are on the ground, you still have that same aspect of, like you said, the gathering spots. You see the running trails, the path that everybody takes to get to this zone or that zone, and it makes the world feel big.
Yeah. So you brought up, we have to jump into some of the mounts that I've seen in games that are just disgusting. So I'm going to give WoW some credit. Some. I used to, every Christmas, I would buy all my officers and maybe some like of my veteran guild members. I would buy them all either in-game pets from the shop or mounts. And for the most part, WoW's mount shop were actually like cool, fantastical looking beasts of the world. For the most part, they were really cool mounts that fit. Now they did like the chopper, the motorcycle, and like stuff like that. And I didn't like any of that. But there's some games that just make the worst. I'm playing Reign of Darkness. If anybody is in our Discord, you've probably seen the picture. Yeah, exactly. There is a cat mount that they put in that game that is the worst looking thing I have ever seen in my life. And you're playing this game, and again, we're really, some of us have gotten into this game pretty considerably right now. But it doesn't fit at all. Like the game is about like plague and people being dead everywhere, and it's bloody and it's violent and it's dark. And I'm going to post it in the green room here if I can find it. I'm going to go back and look for it. But it's
not even a battle
terrible
kitten.
picture.
It's literally just like a little crazy cat lady.
It's so bad. It is one of the worst things I've ever seen. I'm scrolling up so you guys can chat here. But, another one was Final Fantasy 14. They put the car in from Final Fantasy, was it 13 or 15? One of those games, they put the car in it. Oh my God, it looked horrible.
A car in a fantasy setting?
It was so bad. Like I can't even explain how bad it was. And when I saw it like horribly levitating around, it was awful. It was incredibly awful. So that's the kind of stuff. So I am about to post this. If you're in the Pantheon Plus Discord, I'm going to post it in the green room chat. But this is the picture of it if you haven't seen it, and it's freaking awful. I could probably post it in the YouTube chat, so you guys should be able to click that link. I walked across. I immediately took a screenshot of it because I'm like, stupid mounts. There's just no reason. There's no reason. I hate it. I hate it so bad. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, you kind of said already, oh yeah, you just don't want stupid looking mounts. Vandraad, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I want it. Whatever. If there has to be a mount, I want it to be something that fits logically within the world. Something I'm not going to look at that's going to just drag me out and go, why did the hell does that thing exist? And unfortunately, that means mounts need to be things just like horses. That's pretty much it.
The chat is looking at it. Joanne Lee just said, "Oh, it's terrible. It's so bad. It is so bad."
Like it can be like weird things. I'm okay with weird things. Like if it's like a Komodo dragon looking thing that's a mob out in the world, okay, that can be realistic. If it's a big lizard looking thing, all right. But like a cat or like something really just stupid, that's just. No, you got to get rid of that. The other thing I've seen, though, is that the cash shops absolutely gravitate to the mounts, and it just kind of kills it to me. It kills it to me when you see, like, I worked my ass off to get, this little cheapo horse or whatever, and then this level 5 comes up with this awesome-looking armored horse or whatever it is that's got... all these special effects on it and everything, and it's just because some dude spent $20 at the cash shop. It's like, it just kind of kills it too.
Yeah. It shouldn't. If something's hard to get, it should be hard to get. You shouldn't be able to pay for it. I don't know. That's a whole nother topic that I don't think we'll have a lot of different opinions on. But So what would you do with the meter then? So you're kind of against flying mounts. It's right now it's in between ground mounts, no mounts, or just utility mounts. What would you do with the meter there, Hoye?
I'm very laid back on this topic. For me, I would just go with just regular ground mounts. But then I've heard a lot of good ideas from people about, pack mules and everything else. And for me, nothing more than ground mounts, and whatever crazy cool ideas you guys come up with, the more the merrier. Cool, go for it.
Sweet.
But
Thanks
just
for
keep it on the ground, nothing crazy.
Yep. Don't let us skip content. That's it. So Hoye, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming in.
Yep.
As we said, we're gonna jump to Elbrus next. So Elbrus, you can go ahead and cancel your mute and your headphones, put those back on. We'll get you pulled into the chat, and then after that, we'll be going to Mythos. And then after that, we have Tollander who just jumped in, so we'll grab you after that. So, Vandraad, pulling in Elbrus.
Hey.
What's up, man?
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yep,
you're great. So what's your thoughts?
All right.
We've talked about a lot of stuff at this point. You have a whole list of things you could go into. So what are your thoughts on mounts?
Okay, I guess I'm going to have to be the one who's the flying mount advocate because
It's been nice talking to you. Have a nice day.
the game that I played, a lot was Vanguard Saga of Heroes, and ground mounts. They had ground mounts in that, and it was done. I think it was done pretty well. What they did was you couldn't get a ground mount until you reached level 10. So you had to run around all the places. You couldn't even get to a ground mount until you got to level 10. And then once you got to level 10 and you were able to afford a ground mount, it was a certain speed. It was just, it was like level 1 ground mount, level 1 horse. And you could get a better grade horse every 10 levels. So you really didn't necessarily avoid content, but you were able to get to the content a little bit better because Vanguard, the world was huge. It was gigantic. And I remember early on, people started to complain that they couldn't get to where their friends were. I mean, there was one person on one end of Kojin, and there was somebody on Thestra, and they couldn't get together. And once they got together, getting on the boat or getting on the horse, then they had to get from there to where they wanted to travel, to where they wanted to adventure. And the level 1 and level 2 horses helped that, and it was really cool. And it also helped with immersion. One of the coolest things I did was we had a group of the 6 of us all on our horses, and we're running up the Thestran coastline to get to an area to do some adventuring. It was just part of the immersion. And it's like I said, it's the same thing for the flying mounts. But flying mounts were not even available until very high up in the level string. Also, you couldn't just go to somebody and buy a flying mount. You had to do a rather large and very expensive epic quest. One of the best mounts that you could get was a quest that involved you going into Ancient Port Warehouse, which was one of the higher level raid zones. And you had to get a wyvern egg. You had to get the wyvern egg you had to kill the dragon to get the wyvern egg, the incubator. And then you had to go, once you get the incubator, then you had to go to another location, and then you had to kill the mother wyvern, which was raid content. You had to get 30 or 30 plus people to kill it. And then you were able to she dropped 1 egg, and then you had to get the egg, put the egg in the incubator, and you got yourself a wyvern. But it was rather long, it was rather convoluted, and it was part of.
They kind of said earlier about it being like a status.
Yeah,
like a status symbol.
And the coolest thing is, can you see yourself, when you see lower level players and they see you sitting on a wyvern or a griffin, they go, oh my God, where did he get that? How did he get that? And then they figure out, oh, this is what they did. Oh, I got to do that next. It was a part of the status thing. Speaking of status, there was also something in Vanguard where there were these faction coins. And if you got a certain number of faction coins, you could have got yourself a specialized ground mount. But there was also one where you get a specialized flying mount. And the flying mount was a Pegasus. I think it was like 1,000 faction coins to get this Pegasus. And it wasn't the best mount, but it was a status thing. Me being a Wood Elf Ranger, I had to get myself a Pegasus. So I ground. And I did that, and I got the flying mount. I got the Pegasus, and And it was so rare because nobody, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, do all that grinding. Not everybody did that.
Yeah, I remember
And,
that
I
in
brought out
WoW.
that Pegasus, and we go, hey, look, he's got a Pegasus. How did he get that? That sort of thing.
I remember that in WoW with the Ebon Drake quest in Burning Crusade. I was like, nah, I'm not doing it. There's a daily quest you had to do for like a month. Like, I'm like, nah, I'm in. So here's my fear. I think you're bringing up an amazing point. I really do. My fear is, and please don't take this the wrong way if VR is listening or if anyone's listening, I do trust in VR. I really do.
Yeah.
But is any company capable of standing their ground on items that just, here's the deal, not everyone's going to get it. Too bad. All the crying and complaining, if it is that hard to get a flying mount, which I'm fine with, if it's that hard and it's that much of a status icon and it's that crazy and only a few people have it, I'm totally cool with that.
That's the kind of flying mounts that I want. I mean, I don't want to be able to go in and just buy one off the rack or just grind to get maybe 100 gold and then buy a flying mount. No, I want it to be epic. I want it to be somewhere where I can't get it until I'm level 45 and up, or level 50, level 55.
Yeah, but eventually over time, even those things which are, quote, difficult and rare to get will become commonplace. Enough people will do it. Good example was EVE Online when they first introduced the Titan. The president of the company said, Titans are going to be so difficult to produce, there will only ever be a couple of them in the game. In less than a year, there were hundreds. Now there are tens of thousands of them.
Okay, now the question is, was that because everybody ground and did all the work and got it, or did everybody complain and the company knuckled under and made it a little bit easier for everybody to get because they didn't want everybody leaving the game?
Everybody ground for it, but the thing then is you then have to design all of your content with that thing in mind. If it gives you some benefit that is tangible, that gives you some advantage, all of your future content has to be designed with that in mind, or the content becomes trivial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is. But with, these are the same guys who did Vanguard, so I'm hoping that they will take that type of consideration into account, because I think in Vanguard they did it right. It wasn't free and it wasn't easy, but when you got it, it was a status symbol, and there were ways of augmenting or improving it. You had barding that would make your mount fly faster, or horseshoes that made your horse run faster. Those type of things. I mean, it was part of the thing.
I think though, like I have spent so much time in WoW, like grinding out flying mounts towards the end and farming them and stuff. So like I've invested in it. So I've been there, and it's weird because you would think that with all the time I put into it, the vanity of it, that I would be like, yeah, let's do it. But at the same time, it's like my only compromise in it can't be at launch. It can't be in the first expansion. It can't be in this. It needs to be, let's let the game evolve, and then let's make it an exciting expansion, make it hard with that carrot at the end of the stick. If it's going to happen, it cannot be within the first couple years.
Yeah, you could put ground mounts, ground mounts at launch is fine, but like I said, have it staged, but then epic mounts or flying mounts will be way later or for expansions, because there are situations where you have to get to a piece of content, and they say they're tailoring the game so that you can do everything in like a 2-hour session. But you don't want to spend those 2 hours running through old content that you just to get past just to get to where you want to be.
So that brings up
12 level 10 zones to get to your level 50 zone. It would be much more efficient, I think, to fly over the content that you've already done to get to where you need to be.
Vandraad, Vandraad, you were going to jump in.
So he's saying, I need to get through 12 zones that I've already outleveled to get to where I want to be. Okay. Yes, the first time, but shouldn't you be planning ahead? What are you going to do tomorrow? Where do you want to be tomorrow? Would you necessarily want to go all the way back to town knowing full well you're going to have to turn around and retrace your steps 12 zones to get back to that dungeon. No,
Yeah.
you should be staying out in the world.
Orsic just brought up an interesting thing. What's difficult in one expansion becomes easy in one or two. So if you're running through those, new gear is what's going to make it easier to get through those zones, not necessarily a mount of any type or anything like that, just your overall strength. So Elbrus, we have a couple more people we're going to go into. We're already a little bit into overtime. I love the points you've brought up. I love your passion for it. Thank you for representing a viewpoint that maybe not a lot of people agree with. At least they're not saying.
Put the meter to 100 on flying mounts, and also for immersion. You're talking about the world. Having a flying mount gives you a verticality, makes the world more real because it's not only horizontal, it's vertical.
Yes, but the NPCs don't exist in the vertical world.
That's the problem.
Well, you're not there to fight NPCs all the time. You're there to live the world. When was the last time you flew over Kojin?
But why can't they fly though?
Beautiful.
That's the thing though. So jumping in between both of you, if the NPCs are living in the world and there's a bandit camp and the bandit camp has a leader, why are none of them capable of flying if we are? Right?
Because we're better than them.
True that. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Elvis. Thanks for jumping in.
No problem.
All right, we're going to be pulling in Mythos next. So Mythos, you're in next. And then after that, I saw Kyros has jumped in, so we'll get to you as well. So there you go. We have someone who wants flying mounts, who believes it's part of the world. Vandraad, is there a way you could ever be okay with flying mounts from what you've heard so far? Are you still like, no way? Or is there, if it was a very strict rule set, could you accept it?
Let's say that there was an expansion that was a plane of sky type expansion where everything existed, without lot of physical ground. Then yes, a flying mount in that environment, only in that environment, would be acceptable. However, it would still need to be limited to an auto-programmed route. I would not want you to be able to fly around everywhere. Because again, you're going to be bypassing those things, especially if there's some sort of progression through the zone or the series of zones. I would not want the flying mounts to ever be able to leave that content. You have to leave it there because it would completely trivialize everything that comes before it and everything that comes after it, which isn't a flying type zone.
Yeah. No, limitation is going to be important. And I mean, they're building all this stuff for climbing. If you have a flying mount, literally the entire system's gone.
Yeah, and I have to ask the question of VR is, how far ahead are you planning? If you decide to put in flying mounts, you've got to make sure that from that point on, you're taking that into consideration. It's like the feature creep and the power creep that comes into play. Where do you want to be? Where do you want this game to be in 10 years when it comes to the speed at which you can get around the world? Figure out where the ultimate is and then backtrack so that things don't then become trivialized as you move forward.
So I'm putting it out there to chat right now because some people have talked about flying mounts on rails. It's kind of a lot of back and forth, but I put here, does anybody remember the dungeon Oculus? There was a fight that you had to fight in a 3D plane on a dragon. It was crazy. You want to talk about like not wanting people in your group and like being like, have you ever done this before? You can only come in if you've cleared it. That was that dungeon. It was such a nightmare if you didn't know how to do it. And then there was it Malagos? I think Malagos was a raid boss that was in a 3D plane. Oh my. If you think being a raid leader and trying to manage people's position in a 2D plane is fun.
Oh my God, a 3-dimensional?
Oh, it was that was one of the worst fights when it was hard that ever existed. Okay, so we got Mythos. You're actually up next. I see that you've unmuted your mic and headset. We're going to pull you in and give you a chance to speak on this. So, Mythos, welcome in.
Hey, Mythos.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I hope he didn't lose his connection.
He's.
By the way, he's in my guild.
Okay. Yeah, oh, there he is. There he is. He's laughing. Mute us on YouTube, and you should be able to hear us in Discord, I hope. Mythos, are you there?
God, he's such a Philistine.
We're going to drop him down. We'll give him another shot here after Kyros. He's on delay with us right now. I don't think he's hearing us in Discord. So I'm going to drop it. Oh, you got us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for coming on. What are your thoughts on this? We've covered a lot.
Well, obviously, I talked to Van a lot. We were talking about this earlier, to be honest, and for us, it's all about skipping content. That's the main thing with us. I played EverQuest early on, continued it till Dreadspire. We never really used mounts. And of course, this is an opinion. But when you talk about, you know, the pack mules and things like that, where are we really taking, right?
Yeah.
That, to me, that's because we don't know. We don't know where we're going to be taking these things if there's a pack mule. And obviously, just to get it out of the way, I'm highly against flying mount. I don't think they should be in the game, just because of the content skip. And you're skipping content by doing that. You're not learning your character by doing that. And by the way, in the chat, I'm Rising Shadow. That's our guild.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's me. So
awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think at the end of the day, no matter what positive comes in, the skipping content side will always pull me back to never having a flying mount. Every benefit of a flying mount to me is overridden by just watching people skip through a dangerous world. And again, I think of Amber Fate. I think of these vertical. They're building the game vertically to climb it, to traverse it, and to take that away. And this like, why build an entire climbing system if we just fly?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, and if you decide to put, let's say, you know, you put in flying mounts, and you have to then include NPCs that are flying, so that people who are on flying mounts have to deal with some sort of obstacle and danger, then you've got the problem where people on the ground are now dealing with double the penalty. They've got to deal with the NPCs on the ground, and the stuff that's flying over their heads.
And the bodies falling off their mounts right into the middle of their raid and scaring the hell out of them.
Yeah, and it just, you know, and you could, I mean, imagine the potential trains of gathering up a bunch of stuff that flies and then dragging it down to the people that are on the ground. There's just not a benefit for including flying.
And what if so interesting thing, what if instead of, you know, flying, that we had like the flight paths and stuff like that we've talked about a bit, and like the EQ2 being able to go to like the posts and fly, where you don't control it, it just kind of takes you where you need to be, kind of pay, and it's like a flight system, so to speak. If there was something like that, what if it was area wise kind of tied to the area? So if you're in the gnome area, then they could just be teleporters. They're just quick, like it turns you into like a ball of energy and shoots you to the next thing. But if you're in the Scarland, it's a ground mount. It's an auto ground mount. If you're, you know, in the Elven area, maybe you can fly. Like, so, I mean, if they're going to do those type of points, don't just make it like one animal. Like in Warcraft, it was either the Griffin or the, I can't remember what the Horde one was called. I know people are going to light me up for that. But like, what if it was more lore based, where you did have these speed points, but you had to discover them, and they weren't broken, and they weren't even fast. It's just maybe it took you long, but you can at least AFK for a little bit and go do what you got to do on a long flight. So maybe it still takes 20 minutes, but you can be AFK and safe on it at least.
Well,
no.
Still
Again, I don't
content.
like the ability of being able to go through the world and not be in danger.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
For me, it's again, that's already been done.
True.
And I don't want, one thing I do not want more than anything with Pantheon is to see, now, given it's an MMO, so you're going to see a lot of things, leveling, grinding, all this stuff. But at the same time, you don't want to see the same old thing anymore. And kind of what I said earlier in the chat, I would hope that people come, a lot of us started on early EQ. So we're kind of used to this whole notion that there's no mount.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have to try to pull in a newer audience as well. So how do you do that and not make the game?
See, and that's an important. You just brought up a huge point. No matter how much we want this game to be for us, we do need other people to play it so that we can keep playing it. So there is there's that balance of what do you give to people to bring them in, and what do you stand your ground on? And that's the part of being VR that I would never, ever want to have to deal with. That's the tough part. So we do have one more person. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly. So I'm gonna drop you out in a second here, Mythos. But before I do, I'm assuming you want to move that meter down.
Yes. I'm no mount.
Okay. So you just made Eric.
I didn't pay him to say that either, even though he's in my guild.
You already are in debt in the world of Terminus. You already owe people gold.
Yeah, I got it. All right.
All right, Mythos. Have a great night, man. Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Kyros, we're going to be grabbing you next. It looks like your mic and headset are already good to go. So I'm going to give you 1 second to get ready for that. We're going to pull you in. You're going to be our last guest of the night. And then Vandraad, after we talk with Kyros, we'll wrap it up between the two of us. So here comes Kyros. What's up, Kyros? How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Kyros.
Is this your first time on the show? You've been in chat quite a bit. I don't know if...
I think second time. First time I got argued with you.
Good.
Yeah.
I like it. So where you at here?
I'm against flying. Not because flying is not fun, it's because it just doesn't work.
Okay.
It's been proven. It doesn't work in MMOs.
Okay. So ground mounts, how would you want those treated then?
I heard someone say earlier that mounts need to persist all the time, and I agree with that. You know, you take them with you wherever you go. They don't despawn or anything, and they need to be physical creatures, so they're in danger all the time also.
You know what game does that? Final Fantasy 14, you can actually have your Chocobo out. Like when you get off of it, it can fight with you, and it's beside you, it can take damage, and it levels up. It's actually not a bad system for mounts for the actual Chocobo, but then they also just have regular crazy mounts that make the Chocobo useless, but you know.
And I tend to take an approach of MMOs that I like realism and immersion. So whenever you just pop a horse or whatever, a bear or something out of nowhere, and then it just goes away, is that magic or was that a mount? You know, it's hard for me to grasp that, I guess.
Yeah. It is interesting because I don't think anyone just wants to whistle and have their mount show up. And then, as somebody said earlier, you ride it 2 seconds, you get off of it. So, Vandraad, thoughts on that? I mean, it has to persist. I mean, we've talked a lot about that.
It has to persist, and you have the outposts out in the world, and that's where you park your horse. You get yourself close to where you want to be. It gets you there slightly faster. It's still dangerous. You get close to where you want to be. You leave your horse, and then you go on to your final destination.
We had something funny brought up here. So someone here said fairies would be cool, and then what's this is here? Imagine someone. So this is Zach. Imagine someone training your mounts while your raid is fighting a boss. You have all your mounts in the back. It's like all your mounts are dead. Oh, that would be funny. It would be horrible if it was happening to you, but if you watched it, it would be fantastic.
You know, I think back to like Soul A and Soul B in EverQuest 1, and how the heck would you fit a horse in there? You know,
right? And you shouldn't.
Yeah, so your horse, but yet you had the Druid Ring right outside in Lava Storm. That's where you could tie up your horse. You could tie up your horse at a portal or something like that.
Juwan Lee just said, and you just brought that up perfectly. He just said, well, we'd have a problem. We're gonna have like a few dozen mounts parked outside in front of a dungeon. Imagine what it's gonna do to performance when it's crazy and there's just mounts
there's that
everywhere.
Aspect of it too.
That's actually a great point.
You need to be parking your mounts at a localized area and then running from that area to the end of where you're going. Yeah,
unless you don't want it to be safe. You know, if you just let it stand somewhere, I would assume that creatures of wild are going to kill it.
And on another note, like you were saying, we have climbing. We also have the rogue has a rope. Druids can make a bridge. You know, rangers can summon owls or whatever to carry someone.
Mhm.
All of that class fantasy is going to go to the wayside.
Great point. Great point. You kill
Oh,
so
and then
much
the
utility.
magician has can do a boat, I think. The
Summoner.
summoner
I
can do
think
a
so.
boat. Somebody can do a boat, I think.
Yeah, the summoner.
I think that's the only reason to play a summoner. You just stand by water and make boats for people.
Hey, summoner's going to be one of my 8 alts, okay?
Nice.
It's gonna be mana rod, please. Thank you.
Oh man, I have a reputation to hold up to here. I have to make fun of summoners, rangers, and elves. So,
Oh, definitely.
the rangers and elves kind of tie hand in hand, though. So at least that's kind of a 2-for-1. So, all right. So what would you do with the meter there, Kyros? Then, so you've been no flying mounts, but ground mounts are okay. Would you leave it where it's at right now, or would you want to move it up or down, or what are you thinking?
Well, I'm a little bit down. If you're going to have ground mounts, they need to have a very good purpose and design very well. Otherwise, I don't want them.
Okay, cool. I just moved the
One
whole
last,
Yeah.
one last thing about earlier, someone said about mules, which I like pack mules and stuff more than riding horse. If you're like mining or picking herbs or something, you can have that mule with you. And
Yeah, for
that can just be
gathering,
what you're doing all day long, is mining and filling up your mule and walking back and unloading it. You know,
I like that too. And I think somebody in the same line of discussion there, someone was talking about with flying mounts, it just kills the gathering game. That's another thing that's, as in the crafting goes, like people just flying into mining nodes.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
whatever it's
I'm
gonna
right
be.
now. I'm messing around on Guild Wars 2, and my little guy's just plopping along, plop, 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 and some guy comes flying out of nowhere. I see a node that I want to go harvest, and I'm heading towards it. Some guy comes flying out of the sky, drops, harvests it, boom, he's gone before I take 5 steps. And I'm like, okay, so I plot off to the next one, and boop, here he comes again. He swoops and he's gone.
And that
Annoying.
kind of tails onto another thing where you might be leveling in like a level 20ish zone, and then there's a level 50 that's mining in that same zone. He has his pack mule and his mount. He rides by you, buffs you up, says, "Hey, how's it going? Need anything?" Might have an extra item to like toss over. You know, that's all stuff from EverQuest and Asheron's Call, those games that really brought people together and made the world feel alive, other than just seeing him up above you 100 feet. And then, oh, there he is. Bye.
I agree with that. I think those are great points. Awesome. So I moved the meter down. Kyros, thank you, buddy. Thanks for jumping in. I
Yep.
appreciate it. Thanks for all the chat too. You are always active in there, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, man. All right, Vandraad. So that's it. We're gonna wrap up here.
Nice.
So I'm gonna stay pretty much in the middle there. I do think ground mounts are important. I think there has to be limitations on them, but I think the community's spoken. It's communities. You know, they're okay with ground mounts, but they really want. We've talked a lot about that utility. We're not the only ones who thought that should be important, and it looks like people are more leaning towards that.
They should have a function beyond just getting me from point A to point B faster. There needs to be some, downsides to them that is something that's going to be noticeable. But yet having the benefit of being able to carry stuff, but yet subject to NPCs possibly attacking them. I would stop at the horse dying if it was attacked, because you would not want to lose your stuff.
Yeah.
But
Maybe you have to go back to the town, like that. It's almost like when you die for a corpse run, you go back to your bind point. Maybe you have to go all the way back to
naked
to
horse
recover it.
run.
Naked horse run. No barding. Naked horse run.
Your horse has to loot its own corpse.
Yeah. Bring it back over to its corpse and just cries and like nudges
there it
the
goes.
dead body of itself. Yeah. That gets a little dark. That's a little dark.
I like it though.
But here's so the last thing I kind of wanted to say on this is there's a lot of things that, and we talked earlier about gating content to give. Gating is in existence so that people have to play the game more. And there's a lot of people that hate gating, and there's people that don't mind it. I don't mind gating if it's done right, because I want a reason to log on. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest dailies fan, but there have been eras in WoW where I really liked the dailies because I thought they were done well, and there was a carrot at the end that was really fun. And then there were dailies that were just like, why am I doing this? So there's a balance between this, but ultimately what dailies are and what gating content is giving people a reason to play outside of the normal thing you've done 1,000 times and you're going to get bored of. And having a system in for mounts is something else to sink some time into. And there's no that's a good thing.
Yeah, again, it opens up yet one more avenue of player-player interaction.
Yeah. Like you could say, I don't have a lot of time. And this is where, so a lot of times when someone say, you know, I don't have a lot of time to play, and people are like, oh, well, too bad this game's not for you. Well, what if you do a lot of times, but you know, 1 or 2 days you don't, and you still want to log into the game? So maybe you just log in to work on crafting, or you log on to level up your mount, or you do some different things. Like the game doesn't have to be changed for someone who can only play a couple hours, but even the most hardcore people are going to have days where they can only jump on for an hour or two.
Right.
So can you achieve anything in that time? It's not, I think a lot of people look at that and say, oh, we're tailoring to the casual. No. We're tailoring to you as well. You may mainly play 8-hour sessions, but there's definitely going to be times where you can only play for an hour or two. Is it going to be worth logging on? And making the game worth logging on is important. So things like mount maintenance, leveling your mount, making barding, collecting things to finding a blacksmith to make some cool stuff for your mount. That's just cool, fun side things to do to help you with the identity you want to have.
Yeah, and again, if you give the mount some sort of utility, you know, where you can store things on it securely, then you don't have to be going back to town every single day. You can stay out for 6, 7, 8, 9 playing days at a time and take those 35 or 40 minutes it would have taken you to go from town to where you are, and you just stay there, and you get more out.
And that's
of the
what
limited
adventuring
time that
is,
you
right?
have.
Adventuring
Yes,
when you're an adventurer, you don't go back to town every night. You set up camp in the woods. You kind of you're out on your own, and then you make your way back to town. And
you know, it's the Monty Python movies. You know, they got the little guys with, you know, the clapping chloroplast. That's the way I'm looking at it. You're staying out in the world. You're experiencing the world, and then what you do is you go back to town after a week or two, and you regale everybody with your stories, and you sell all of your loot, and you know, and that sort of stuff, and you catch up with everybody. Then you go back out into the world again.
Yep. No, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just a motto. It's just a motto.
It's just a model.
Vandraad, I've had a ton of fun with you tonight. Community has
Always
been
a
awesome.
pleasure, sir.
Here's what we're going to do. Right before we go, we have a couple minutes. So we're going to let you guys in chat affect that meter. So if you want it up, type up. If you want it down, type down. If you want it to stay, type stay. We will let you guys for a couple minutes light up the chat. Let's see what you guys do in the YouTube chat. Go ahead, light it up. If you want it up, type up. If you want to move it down, type down. If you want it to stay, type stay. And Vandraad, you're going to try to help me go and read these and kind of try to keep up.
I'm counting all the ups because I hate those people.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough. That's a little rough. So we got up, stay down, stay
seeing like
down.
5 ups.
Stay down. That's like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Stay down. Or Rocky. Stay down. Up, stay
I'm seeing
down.
more downs and stays than I am up. So
Okay. So it's kind of verse. Probably gonna end up staying then, I would say.
yeah, I think it's going to stay right about where it is. Again,
But
you
we
know,
just got a bunch down.
we still want the ground mounts, but we don't want them to be too fast. Because again, we don't want them to be able to avoid, you know, NPCs, and we want some utility out of it. So I think it's a perfect balance of those two options.
Yeah, because right now where the meter is, I mean, it's not very high above the no mounts utility only. So it's like we really want no mounts or utility, but if we're gonna have mounts, we want ground mounts a little bit. So
Right, correct.
It seems to be pretty in line. We towards the end there we got a lot of down, but with the combination of stays and ups will probably keep it around stay. Maybe I'll move it down a tiny bit. That's kind of what I'm feeling. So we'll move that down
There
a
we
little
go.
bit. So it's interesting. Community is definitely okay with not having mounts. I'm running around in Reign of Darkness right now. I don't have a mount, so I just run everywhere, and it's okay. I guess it's all I know, right? I don't know better. So
Yeah, same
That's
with
how I
like Guild
traverse
Wars.
the
I'm
world.
just, you know, plodding along.
well, Vandraad, awesome. Thank you. Number one, you're always in the green room. You always want to jump on the show. You've always provided your opinion. You chat in the community a lot. So it was awesome to have you on as a guest tonight. You kicked
Thank
ass.
you for inviting me. It was a wonderful evening.
It's pretty fun, right? It goes by pretty quick. An hour and a
Yeah,
half,
it
just like
does.
that. So thank you to everybody in the community, in the chat, in the Discord. If you haven't joined our Discord, please do. There's nothing in there, just a bunch of people that like talking about Pantheon. It's a pretty safe community to have an opinion and not get attacked for it for the most part. So jump in there. You can chat about anything you want. We try to play some other games together as well. It's just a fun community, but it's what makes this show possible as well. So if you want to come on in the future, jump in. That's everything I got for tonight. Good topic. It looks like I'm staying where I am. I'm not moving. You guys didn't convince me, but definitely a lot of good points on the utility side. I want ground mounts, but I really want utility. So if that makes any sense.
Same here.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you. Vandraad, thank you. Thank you to the community.
Good night,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for having me.
We are out.